Hi guys, Allison here, the Introspective Wife. And today we are doing part 2 of Why Am I Still Procrastinating? So, I mentioned last week that I am struggling to make changes in my life. That if I could just get over the procrastination when it comes to my creative work, I've changed so much positive things in wanting to, the housewife side of it, right? Maintaining a clean home, doing that regularly. So, my biggest thing was cleaning the bathrooms, like I shared. I did not like cleaning them, so I've got myself to cleaning those once a week and just being more tidy and all of that. Cooking and trying to figure that out more often. Like, I share with you guys, I do like the meal prepping or meal planning for my husband's lunches, and he's not here right now, so that's been really easy to not have to do that. But just trying to cook more from home and eat with a little bit more nutritious mindset. I've maintained my workouts, I would say probably almost 5 out of 5 days, sometimes 4 out of 5 days. I do some type of physical activity. I try to do at least a good strength training workout 3 times a week. That's my goal. And then the other 2 days can be a little bit more like relaxed. So like maybe taking a walk or doing a yoga class or something. So there's a lot that I have changed. And a lot of that I think is with help from the War of Art that we talked about a few months ago. But I have still been struggling with my procrastination. So I was recommended this book from a friend called Atomic Habits. So last week we talked about the 4 laws and his examples of things to do and like some formulas that you can try under the 4 laws. Again, if you want to do something and make some change in your life, I think this book is going to be really helpful. I'm in the process of testing it out. So, like I explained in last week's episode, I am doing these 2 episodes, and then either at the end of the year or the beginning of 2023, so like sometime in January, I'm going to do like a recap and see where we're at, right? If these things actually helped and I was able to implement them in my life to make some like really great change, or if I, was not able to stick with it. So hopefully, right? But I think there's some really good points in here and some really interesting things. So today I'm going to talk about the ones that stuck out to me specifically and how I have already started to use them in my life and why I am so hopeful that I think these are actually going to work. So, if you have been enjoying these episodes, please share with a friend. Please subscribe, comment, check out the description for the link tree, and you can see my social media. I tried to post some really positive and inspirational quotes there that either make your day or might get you thinking in some sort of way. So that's what we do over there. And yeah, I think that's about it. So cheers, guys. Let's get to it. So before I forget this, I want to make this point because I don't think I made it in last week's episode. So, one thing I'm realizing is that you have to make a sacrifice when it comes to this stuff. So at the end of the day, you can have all the tricks and you can do all of the things, but if you haven't really fully committed yourself to what it is that you're trying to do, you're not going to do it. So where that comes from is, I think, really the key to figuring out how to make some real positive change. And, towards the end of this, I'm going to get into my one criticism that I have of this, which kind of filters into that thought. But you have to understand that there are sacrifices that have to be made, whether that's your comfort or your time or, doing something different. There's, sometimes relationships, like we've talked about all of that before. Like so many philosophers talk about when you're trying to better yourself, the frustrations and the hard aspects of what change means. Because when you change yourself for, whatever reason, the people around you sometimes are really uncomfortable with that. And sometimes their insecurities, project onto you, and, it makes things kind of weird. So realize that, like, if you want to make the changes, if you want to actually make better habits in your life, there is something inside of you that has to decide that you're willing to put up with the sacrifices that may cause. Okay, so all right. So the first trick that I want to talk about today, and the one that I think is probably going to work the best for me, is what he called habit stacking. So habit stacking is where you already have an established habit that you do in your life, and you add your new habit to it. So if you brush your teeth, but you don't floss, then you decide you want to start flossing because it's better for you or whatever. You would then brush your teeth and then immediately floss afterwards. So, that's something that's like really simple and still a lot of people don't do, right? But, you have to, again, we're going to get into that later. You have to be motivated to do that stuff, right? So, I'm going to get into that later though. But, so it would be something like that. So for me, I told you last week, he mentioned this one idea where you could do you could use a formula of the behavior that you want to do at the time that you want to do it in the location that you want to do it. So for me, I've tried before to do I'm going to write at 12:30 in my office, and that didn't work for me because the minute that would get interrupted, or if something came up, like I had an appointment or whatever, it drove me insane because in my mind, I'm supposed to be sitting down here and writing right now, and I'm being interrupted. And then once that time passed, not going to go back to writing. Even if I had 4 hours to continue to write, it's not going to happen because now I'm upset that I missed my initial time when I was supposed to be there. So that does not work for me. But the idea of habit stacking is really interesting. So basically, this is kind of my morning routine. I wake up, I work out immediately. So the first thing that I do so that I have no excuses throughout the rest of the day is I work out. That was already an established habit. Then I shower because I smell kind of bad when I sweat, okay? So I now, those are habits. Then I go and do my freelance work. I have this little freelance thing that I do that takes a little bit over an hour, like an hour to an hour and a half every day. So those are already established habits. And then I eat lunch. So basically, after lunch, I'm free to do my writing and my podcast work. What ends up happening sometimes is that the podcast ends up prioritizing over the writing because of whatever reason. And so that's why I wasn't writing for the longest time, because I was trying to make double podcasts because I was going out of town and all this stuff. And I was procrastinating throughout the day. So the podcast was getting prioritized over writing, and writing wasn't getting done at all. So I realized with the habit stacking, if I eat lunch and then immediately after lunch, I go and write for however long. I can write for a half hour, I can write for an hour, I can write for 2 hours. However long I feel like writing for. I can write for 4 hours, Then I will more than likely do it. So that's what I've tried this week, and I have to tell you, it has been such a game changer. It's like I know that once I eat lunch, now is my time to write, and I don't have to put a time frame on it, and it doesn't matter what time I eat lunch. So like earlier this week, I had an appointment in the middle of the day. Again, like later this week, I have another appointment that's in the like earlier morning. So I know that it doesn't matter about what time frame all of that's happening. I'm still going to get all that other stuff done. I'm still going to work out. I'm still going to shower. I'm still going to get my freelance done. And I'm still going to have to eat lunch, right? Because I have to eat lunch. That's important that I eat lunch every day. But as soon as I eat lunch, if I eat lunch at 11:30 and I start writing at noon, if I eat lunch at 2:30 and I start reading or writing at 3, it doesn't matter because now I have this habit established that I eat lunch and then I write afterwards. So I think that is actually going to work really well for me. So then he talks about making it easy to prime my environment. So I mentioned I do this little freelance work. This is where several of his concepts come into play. So just kind of like bear with me for a minute because it might feel a little all over. But the first thing is I realized that I work in my living room when I do my freelance stuff and I watch TV. So the TV is an issue and working in the living room is the issue. So even though it's like comfortable to sit on the couch and just like put my laptop on my, lap and work off of it that way, it makes like the dynamic between my freelance work and my relaxing time and like what you use your living room for, it makes it kind of weird. So I realized that I probably shouldn't be doing my freelance work in the living room anymore. And it's like by breaking up, because when I write and when I work on my podcast, I'm in my office. That's what I use it for. So I thought, I'm like, well, maybe if I bring my freelance work into my office, then it kind of feels more of like I'm going and doing my job. So I'm like starting to look at all of this as like, even though I have these different things that I do throughout the day, and the writing and the podcasting I don't get paid for, but if I start kind of treating them like a job, which I'm sure we've all heard that expression before, but like I said, there's so many things that we hear and then it's like at certain points in our life they click and make sense with us. So I'm like, well, I am dedicated to the freelance, work that I do. So maybe if I move that into the office and start to prime myself for the day, like this is where we sit down to do work, then it'll feel more important to come and sit down and do my writing and to work on the podcast. So the second part of that is watching TV, and that's the bad habit. So he also talked about like the 4 laws of breaking bad habits, right? And so I think for a lot of us, and specifically me, this is probably going to be like one of the most important aspects they bring to this and that I have to stick to is breaking this bad habit of watching TV during the day. So I oftentimes will watch TV while I work out, but I'm really good about after working out, turning it off and immediately getting in the shower. That's never been an issue for me. And I think it's because I know I have my freelance work to do afterwards. So like I don't want to like dawdle like watching a show or something. Just have it on while I work out. Done. Okay, great. The issue came into play when I would sit down because of the type of freelance work I do. It's not that complicated, so I like to have like the TV or just have something, and it's really just kind of background noise so that like it's not silent, I guess. And the problem is that after I would finish it, I would continue to sit there and watch TV. And then when I made lunch, I would sit there and watch TV. So then after I'm finished with lunch, I would continue to sit there and watch TV. And so the procrastination aspect of that was, I would get involved in the television show that I was watching, and it made it a lot harder to get up and go upstairs and do my writing and all of that. And so I think that also by doing my freelance work in my office, I don't have a TV in here. So I'm not going to be allowed to get enticed by watching TV in that sort of way. And then also while I'm eating lunch, I'm no longer allowing myself to watch TV while I eat lunch. So basically, after I work out in the morning, I'm not allowed to watch TV until I'm done with my work for the day. So, and if I stay in the office and all that, I shouldn't be tempted, right? I have a lot of stuff to do, but it's like, it's easy to watch TV. It's hard to write. It's hard to work on the podcast. So when there's stuff like that was not immediately clear to me that I had this bad habit of watching TV. I didn't think TV was that big of a deal. And I watched reruns a lot because like I didn't want to get involved in a new show because I knew that would like distract me, but it really didn't matter. Even the reruns were enough of a distraction. So getting rid of that and working on that bad habit, I think is going to make the world of a difference, because then it's going to be harder for me to figure out ways to distract myself from not doing what I need to be doing. And so another part of that, before I get into the 2-minute rule, is that also, he talks about in the book of like becoming the type of person that you want to become. And I really, again, I like that idea a lot because it helps you kind of visualize like what does a writer do, or what does, a gardener do? What does a salesperson do? What does a pharmacist, I don't know, put in whatever type of person that you want to be, or however type, that you see yourself, that you're struggling to become. What do these people do throughout their day? And so, I also, like, not only as a writer, but like as just somebody who is on here trying to talk about like philosophical things and all of that, I want to dedicate more of my time to knowledge and learning things. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be like philosophy related, but I've gotten like really into history and it's really interesting to me. So I've found a few podcasts that like have some like history and just fun stuff like that, I guess, that's really interesting to me. And so also by fulfilling my dedication to breaking the bad habit of watching TV, I'm now allowing myself and opening myself up to being able to learn more. So I get to learn from the podcast. So that's what I can turn off the podcast super easy. It's super easy for me to just hit pause on that. For some reason, TV's not. So we have to like figure out like what our things are. Maybe for you, like listening to a podcast would actually be too enticing, so that wouldn't work, or just even listening to music. Like there's so many things that I want to be and do, and I really allow TV to distract me from becoming them. So I guess like with that as well, like think about the type of person that you want to become and like what's going on in your life right now that's stopping you from becoming that. So then the next aspect, he talked about is this idea of the 2-minute rule. And I've had friends talk to me about this before. They, in the creative world, they've done it and it's been really helpful for them. I've done it in the past and it never stuck with me, but I'm hoping now that I have like this habit stacking and this environment prep that, or priming my environment, that this will become a little easier. And it's basically just, you can look at it a few different ways. How I'm taking it is basically sitting down and saying like, okay, I just need to start writing like a page or two, and then we'll see where it goes. And so there are going to be days when you're feeling, the words are coming or whatever. It could be a workout, right? Like I'm just going to work out for a few minutes and see how I feel. And most of the time, once we start something, we feel motivated to continue to go, right? So it's really just about like getting over that hump of, okay, I have to actually do this now, right? Because that's the scary part, just getting started. And that initial problem solving aspect, I think, just kind of is intimidating. But once we get past that, then you can like I don't know what I'm saying. Okay. I like started reading something else. The 2-minute rule. Oh my God. Once you get past that, then you're able to just continue, right? You can like get what you need to get done. So again, like there's another thing that I'm using all these principles for, not just my writing, and it's for the podcast making. So I realized I really drag my feet when it comes to making the podcast, and it's not because I don't want to. I usually have a lot to talk about, obviously, and I'm usually super excited to talk about stuff. But I realized I do not like making myself up. So for those of you that are listeners, this doesn't matter to you anyways, but for those of you who watch on YouTube, I, put a little makeup on, I try to do my hair and pick out an outfit. Are they always winners? No. I mean, honestly, this one was kind of lazy this week, but I at least try a little bit to make myself look presentable because I think that's important. So, however, it's really not fun for me. I enjoy getting ready when I'm going out, but I was thinking about this and like I've never dressed up for a job. Okay, that's not true. I dressed up for a job when I worked in the hospitality, like restaurant business, but once I started working as a professional, like in film and video, I never wore makeup. I went to work with my hair wet and it just like would air dry. And it's totally okay to wear shirts and or jeans and t-shirts. It's not like you have to show up and it's a beauty contest every day. So I got really comfortable with that. And because of the hours of the job and all that, people don't expect you to like look uber professional. It's okay to look how I looked. And I also thought I looked pretty with no makeup. So, but now it's like on camera, you just look tired if you don't have some like makeup on or something. So I get the importance of having to wear it to make the podcast, but it's not something that I like to do unless I'm like going out to have a fun time. Then I love to get dolled up. But for like my work, I don't enjoy doing that. It's a pain for me. So one of the things he talks about is like making it easy. And so I looked at this habit stacking aspect and I was like, how can I make getting like myself ready for the podcast easier? So today I tried out, I took my shower and then afterwards I just got ready as if like I was getting ready for the day. So I put on my makeup and I did my hair and I laid out the outfit that I was going to wear for the podcast. And that way it didn't feel so daunting like, oh, I'm doing this for the podcast. Because a lot of times like I kind of have to psych myself up because it's, a little intimidating to record your voice and record yourself on a video. So you kind of like psych yourself up. By the time I psych myself up, now it's like, oh, I have to go get my hair and makeup ready now. And it's like, okay, and then it kind of is like this deflating feeling for a minute, and then I have to like re-psych myself up again to do the show. And so I'm like, obviously that's not working, and it's making me not want to make the podcast because of stupid hair and makeup. So I was like, what if I did it and that way it felt like I'm going to work or doing this for work? And I still drug my feet today. It was very painful this morning trying to get myself going, knowing this was going to happen. But I just kind of took everything like step by step. And I did get myself together after my shower. And then I had my freelance, I had my lunch to do, and then I had my writing to do for a while. So then when it came time to make the podcast, I was like, oh, okay, I'm now ready to do the podcast. And it was a lot easier and it was a lot more enjoyable. So I don't have to do that every day, obviously. I just have to do it on the days that I plan to make the podcast. But again, another example of like, that really made the whole process a lot easier. And because I chose to do it like after like my shower and I already have a routine with that, and I have a routine of like, when I go out, like I take a shower and then like get myself ready. So that didn't feel so painful as if I'm just like getting ready for the sake of the podcast, I guess. And so the last thing that I took from him was to make it satisfying. And I was having trouble, like, I thought it was a really great idea, but I was kind of having trouble coming up with something that I felt was, like, satisfying. And then I started to think about, I think I shared last week, where when I don't work on the podcast and when I don't do my writing for the day, I feel really guilty and anxious the rest of the night. I don't allow myself to relax like a normal person, and I don't indulge in things that I want to. So I might want to watch a new show or something, and I won't allow myself to do that. I'll watch reruns of a show that I've seen a million times, but it's like almost like I don't deserve to watch the new show. So I realized when I do write and when I do get my work done, it's like I've made my mark on the day, and it feels so much better to go on with my evening. I can have my energy in different areas. There have been little crafts and projects around my house that I've been wanting to do, and I've not been allowing myself to do them because I just sit there and feel guilty and bad for not doing this stuff that's supposed to be so important to me. It's like I don't deserve to do these little side projects because I'm not doing these things that are so big in my life. So I think that my thing that makes it satisfying is that I get to make my mark on the day, and I can now leave that and go and have fun in other ways. And I can use, my brain in other ways and not just constantly be focused on this stuff. So I think if you can find something to kind of make it worthwhile, then it doesn't have to be something huge, right? But just a little something that okay, today, I did this and now I get to enjoy this. I think it does help and reinforce you to continue to want to make those good habit changes and break your bad habits. So I'm going to wrap it up here. My one criticism, which he kind of talks about, but it's not super clear, I guess, is that I really feel like, and I kind of touched on this in the beginning of the episode of understanding that you're making sacrifices doing this, but you really need to have your values in place to have the motivation to want to make these changes in the first place. So I think that there are things that maybe we want to change in our life, but if we don't fully understand why we want to change them, we're just going to go back to our old ways because there's nothing there that's really going to keep you coming back for more. I think that you can have all the tricks and they might work for a while, but the minute you might go on vacation or maybe your schedule gets thrown off or whatever, it's what's going to bring you back to doing the stuff that you were wanting to do and wanting to change in your life. And I think sometimes we have these ideas I want to be this type of person, but we don't fully understand what being that type of person entails. So, if you want to be somebody who's fit and look a certain way, then you're going to have to dedicate a certain amount of time to working out and eating healthy that, are you really that comfortable doing? I want to be a screenwriter, and I also want to make a podcast. Well, there's only so much time in the day. So I have to be realistic in my plans of what I want to actually do with this stuff and how it can fit in my day, and what I'm capable of doing every day. For me, writing takes a lot out of me. And so usually a few pages is all I can get through, at least when in certain scenarios. So whereas some people, and pairing that with making the podcast, so my focus goes in a few different directions. And so some people might think that's wrong or whatever, but that's what I'm choosing to do right now. So it's whatever. Some people are you should just focus on one thing. I say do what you want, but make sure your values are in line with what it is that you are wanting to do. So I didn't feel like he touched on that very well, and I think that's because it's something that you have to figure out for yourself. I'm guessing he's assuming if you're already buying the book Atomic Habits, you have some ideas and you just need the help to figure out how to implement them. But I think, we have so many influences in our lives that sometimes we don't even realize why we want something. We just want it because it's been suggested to us, which is next week's episode. The power of suggestion. But so, have your values in line. Those are your values are what is going to motivate you to seek the change and also continue to want to implement the change even when it's grown stale. He talks about that. He talks about getting bored and, continuing, maybe trying to make it better and kind of passing these plateaus and stuff. And I saw this post recently that I think was right on the money where it said, people who are successful are comfortable with being bored. So, like, this stuff at first is kind of exciting, which I think is, like, why it feels like it's going to work and it's going to do all this. But then once you get into a groove of it and it becomes part of your life, how do you keep it interesting? How do you continue to work towards why you wanted the change in the first place? And I think creating your values around that to motivate you versus like maybe just a big end goal, which he does talk about in here. But I think, creating value system, like I work out because, I want to be healthy and, sustainable on my own for as long as possible, realizing that as you get older and your health deteriorates, it's harder to be mobile, right? So my goal of working out every day is so that longevity wise, like I can sustain myself for a long time. I think that's a really good value to have versus, I just want to look skinny in the near future or whatever. So, there are things that, and if that is your goal, that's fine. But just realize that, like, okay, what happens once you get skinny, right? Then you're going to have to create another goal. So it's a little bit better when your values are what kind of motivate you and help create your systems versus, like, just one big, like, I could say, I want to finish my screenplay. Okay, great. But when is a screenplay actually finished? So much of this stuff is kind of a little... I don't know what word I'm looking for, but they don't have like these clear end dates. It's always a work in progress, and especially with personal change, you're always a work in progress. So I think that, again, having values or like these bigger picture ideas that can help motivate you to continue to implement these processes are going to help you keep the better habits and like break the bad ones. Then versus like if it's just kind of like an end goal that's very precise, it's going to be harder. Like once you hit that, it's going to be harder to like maintain what you've started. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining me for these last 2 episodes. I hope you found it inspiring. If you are somebody who's been looking for something to help you create some better habits and change in your life or get rid of those bad habits, this book is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It was really well written, super great to read. He's very clear in his ideas. So I thought overall this was a really great read. I'm just curious if it's going to work for me because, like I said, I'm a little defiant and I'll find the loopholes. And, logic my way out of all these different things when the reality is, you just kind of got to let your brain do what it does, which is it loves habits. It loves a schedule. We love routine. And he talks a lot about that. So there's a lot of like cool little stuff in there that I had never heard of before that I thought was really neat. And also just like, you don't feel so alone. Like he has some really cool examples of like artists and athletes and successful business people who, struggle. Like we all struggle with this stuff. It's not unique to anybody. I know my procrastination is not unique to me at all. So there's a lot of people out there that, want to do better. And the people who succeed and are really successful are the ones who decide that they're going to dedicate themselves. And like I said, kind of sacrifice stuff to make sure that these changes stick. So anyways, thank you guys for another great week. Please share with a friend. Please comment, subscribe. Go to the link in the description and check out my social media, my website, my blog, all of that fun stuff. Share with a friend. Did I say share with a friend? Okay. Share with your friends. All right. And again, the book is also in the description. Will be linked in the description. So if you guys are interested in that, you should definitely check it out. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your week and cheers. I'll see you soon. Bye.